Hi everyone. Wanted to walk you through this goal seek exercise and how to do it. If you would prefer to follow along or read, here on the README tab, I've got this. I've got several links, and this one I'll just go ahead and bring over. And this one will walk you through two very similar exercises, and it walks you through step by step. So there's the first one. If you click on the second one, it'll take you down to this second example. So you've got that there. But if we go ahead and go back to, here, in this one, what we've got is here's student one. They've got 4 tests that they're going to take. They've taken 3 so far. So this is going to calculate their overall final score. Okay, and then this one is calculating their score thus far, so just over the first 3. And so what we want to do is see if student 1 says, look, I'd like to pull my grade up to an 80. What do I need to get that final score, overall score, to be an 80? And so you can imagine doing a couple things like saying, hey, what if, if I put in 100, that gets me up to 83. Okay, if I get 99, that gets me to 82.8, 98, and so on. And what GoalSeek does is it's this wonderful tool that allows us to do what if analysis, or what would it take to achieve a goal. That's why they call it GoalSeek. And it's going to iterate through what I just showed you hundreds and hundreds of times, and it'll do it really quickly. So what we're going to do, I've got some screenshots here of what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and select this final score because that's the goal, the cell that has our final goal in it. So I'm going to go up here to, just like I have listed here, I'm going to go up to Data, What If Analysis, and Goal Seek. And I want to change my target cell, or the goal cell, is G7. I want to set it to an 80 by changing F7. And if you're not able to see this, I've clipped it over here as a screenshot, and I'm going to hit OK. And what you're seeing is that it's actually iterating through, 50 numbers right there. And because I started it out empty, because cell F7 was empty, it actually had to cycle through a whole bunch of stuff between 0 and 1 to see if anything between 0 and 1 would do it. So it iterated a whole bunch of times, but it found that, hey, if I got an 88, or if this student got an 88 on test number 4, that would pull up their final score, or give them an overall score of 80 for the class. Okay, now then you say, well, what if I gave it a starting value? So if I just said, look, I'm going to give it a 50 to start with, and all that does really is give an Excel a starting place. And what you'll see now is if I do it again, it'll actually land on that value much more quickly. So now if I go up to Data, What If Analysis, Goal Seek, so the target cell, or the set cell, is G7 to value 80 by changing cell F7. It finds it really fast. Okay. Now on the next one I say, is it possible for student number 2 to get 85 for the class? So on this one, what we'll do is say, we'll do it again. I'll say what if analysis, goal seek. Now it's G8, and I'm going to say to get an 85 by changing cell F8. And it's cycling through. You see all these iterations that it's going through. Okay, and it says, well, I'd have to get 135 on the final, and if the test only goes up to 100, then no, it's not feasible for them. Okay, on question 3, I say, let's say that this student says, you know what, I only need to get a 75 for the class, so what's the lowest score I could get? So I'm actually going to put in a value here of like 90, just so that you can see that actually Excel can find a value lower than it as well. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put my cursor here in G9, and I'm going to go, what if goal seek? So what if G9 to value 75 by changing this cell? Okay. And it says, you know what, this person, I'm going to go ahead and hide these, I'm going to ignore this error. This is just telling me that I'm ignoring this number, the student ID number. And that's fine. I want to ignore that number. Okay, so even though it had a higher number, Excel can find something lower. And so this is actually the minimum. So this person could get like 51.5 points on the final out of 100, so 51%, and still end up with a 75. Okay, so that one, I think you can see how it does it. Down here I've put it to say, hey, it also works with percentages. The only trick is I'm going to put in 50%. Okay, the only difference is when I go down here, if I want to see about getting an 88%, I'm going to hit goal seek. So I'm going to say this is now G18 to value, and I have to put it as 0.8 or 0.8 by changing cell F18, and it'll do the same thing. So you can do it with percentages as well. I just want you to be able to see that. Okay. On this page, we're going to go here to do break-even analysis, and you'll notice down here that I've put, I can even bring these up a little bit when we get to what's the difference between these fixed costs and these variable costs. Okay. But in this one, we're doing break-even analysis. So I've got over here, I've put all my inputs here in yellow. And so that's where, this is where any changes that I want to make as far as the sales price or the variable cost per unit or the fixed cost, I want to make over here in these yellow cells. Okay, and then just to remind us of what's the difference between a fixed cost and a variable cost. A fixed cost, down here it says stays the same, but in fact the way we want to think about it is kind of over here what this one says, which is I've got to pay that fixed cost even if I produce, like it says, regardless of the number of units I sell, meaning even if I sell 0 or I sell 10,000. So if I owned a frozen yogurt place, and then a fixed cost is like my rent or my lease, because I have to pay that rent regardless of whether I stay closed the entire month and sell 0 units. You know, I'm not selling any ice cream cones or frozen yogurt, or if I sell 10,000. Whereas a variable cost is the cost of me selling one more ice cream cone, right? So it's the cream, the milk, the sugar, the cone, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why fixed costs, like this green rectangle right here, they don't vary with the quantity produced, like how many ice cream cones I sell, whereas this one does. And then I have to add up both of them to get, you know, what are my total costs. So what this is going to look like in practice here is I've got down here, if we produce 100 units, what price must we sell them at to break even? And then if the price is $25, how many units do we have to sell to break even? So I'm going to start with this price is 25 first, and then we'll go to this 100 units. So in this one, we're changing the number of units, but holding price constant at $25. This one we're saying, look, what if I have 100 units, or I've already produced 100 units, what do I have to sell them for to break even? Okay. Now, to make this easier for ourselves, I'm actually going to name all 4 of these cells as ranges. So this price one I'm going to call sales price. Okay. Units sold, so this is my quantity. I'm going to call it units sold. My variable cost per unit, I'm going to just call var_costs. And then this one I'll call fixed costs. So I've got 4 of these. I've got sales price, fixed costs, units sold, and variable costs. I'll make this a little bit bigger. That makes it easier to see. Okay, so revenue is price times quantity, right? I sold 100 units at $25 a unit. So I'm going to say it's equal to sales price times units sold. Okay, sales price times units sold. Okay, cost of goods sold, I'm going to put in here says is COGS. That's what you will often call it in your accounting class. These are the variable costs. Like, you know, the cost of selling each of those ice cream cones, so the milk, the sugar, the cream, all that stuff. So that's going to be, I sold 100 units and it cost me $15 a unit in this example. Okay, so I'm going to say is equal to unit sales, your units sold, times my variable costs. So unit sold times variable cost. And again, the nice thing is, if I'm in it, you'll see up here, it has it still keeps the formulas in them, or the name of the ranges, so that I can see, oh, this is sales price times units sold. Okay. So I had $2,500 in revenue and $1,500 in variable costs. So gross profit is just equal to the revenue minus the cost of goods sold. So E8 minus E9. So I've got $1,000 of gross profit, and now I need to cover my fixed costs. So fixed costs, I'm just going to say is equal to, I'm just going to point it to this cell with fixed costs. And so profit is going to be equal to this $1,000 of gross profit minus my $3,500 of fixed costs. So it's going to equal this minus that. So E10 minus E12. Okay, so that says, by being in parentheses, that means I'm losing $2,500. And then down here, just so we can keep track of it, I'm also going to put in my total costs, which are going to be this cost of goods sold, my variable costs, plus my fixed costs. So I'm going to say is equal to this $1,500 plus the $3,500. So I've got $5,000 worth of costs, and I had $2,500 in revenue, which is why I'm losing $2,500. Okay, so this part says if the price is $25, how many units do we need to sell to break even? Okay, and what that means is, or the way we're going to do that with goal seek is, I'm going to go up here to data, what if analysis, goal seek. Okay, and so in this case, the target cell is going to be E13, which is this profit. And we're going to set that to 0, which is what break even means, right? I'm not making any money, but I'm not losing any either. And then what we're going to do is I'm changing the cell with the units sold. So Bravo 9, B9. So I've got set cell E13, my profit, to 0 by changing cell Bravo 9, B9. And it's going to say, hey, you've got to sell 350 units. And the intuition there is, it cost me $15 a unit to make, and I'm selling them for $25. So that $10 difference in accounting is often called unit contribution, or it's my gross profit per unit. So in other words, every unit I sell, I'm making $10 beyond my variable costs. And the reason they call it unit contribution is because it's contributing, that's how much each unit contributes to covering my fixed costs. So if I'm making $10 a unit and I need to cover $3,500 of fixed costs, that means I need to sell 350 units, which is what we find. Okay. Now, we could also do it like what we have in number 3 here, which says, look, if we can only produce 100 units, or I've produced 100 units, now I want to change the price. What's the price that I need to sell them at to break even? So I'm going to say 100. I'm going to put 100 here. So we were losing money before, so we're going to need to raise that price probably pretty dramatically. So same thing. We're going to say, what if goal seek, and this is one of the weaknesses of goal seek, is you have to sort of start over every single time. But in this case, we're setting profit still to 0 because we're trying to break even. But this time, instead of changing quantity, we want to change the price. So I'm going to change this price to, I'm going to change this cell to B8 so that it's pointing to the price. Okay, and I think you saw it there kind of climb up, and it says $50. Okay, and that's because if I produce them, or it cost me $15 each to produce, and I sold them for $50, then I'm making $35 of unit contribution per unit. And so if I need to cover $3,500 of fixed costs, then if I sell 100 units, then I'm okay. Okay, now if we want to double check our work, okay, so over here we're going to do some sensitivity analysis. And so here I've got prices going from 20 to 100. Now why did I start at 20? Well, if I set it at $15, then no matter what I did, if it cost me $15 in variable costs to produce one unit, and I sold it at $15, I'm never going to be able to make up these fixed costs, right? even if I sell 100,000 units, because I'm not making any money on any of my units. So I started at 20 and I'm going up to 100. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin this comment. So by show hide comments. Now, if you're using Office 365, these are now called notes, like a note to self. And then a comment is something where people can reply to each other, much like you would do in a Google Doc. Okay, but I'm using Excel 2019, and so this is called a comment. So what I want to do is put this formula in these cells. So like I say here, I'm saying, look, we're choosing the price and then calculating the number of units it takes to break even. Okay, so the only thing that's going to be tricky here is the price that we want to use in calculating this. So I've got fixed costs and then price minus variable cost per unit. The only thing that's tricky is the price I want to use is the price in this column and not the price I have over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And so I'm going to say it's equal to fixed costs divided by the $20, this price here, minus the variable costs. Okay, fixed costs divided by this price right here minus my variable costs. Okay, so I've recreated this formula. I'm going to go ahead and hit this comma and down to, I'll just leave it at one decimal place. Okay, so at $50, this says I need to sell 100 units, just like we calculated here. At $40, I need to sell 140 units, and so on. So if I say, look, if I did $40 and 140 units, this should break even. Okay, so this is the only reason I'm showing this. This isn't GoalSeek, but I just want to show you how GoalSeek is coming up with this sort of break-even analysis, and then so that you could calculate this directly, or again, do some sensitivity analysis to say, well, I don't know if I could sell it for $50. Maybe I could sell it at 40. Okay, well then I would need at least 140 to break even. Okay, and then on this one, I've got, now again, just like I did here, I always try and pick a color and put all my inputs in that color. So in this one, what I've done is I've put annual rate, years, and loan, and I just clicked them into this input. So this is just formatting color. And then this output, I use this calculation. So this is just picking a style, and it just makes it easy to see where do I want to make changes and where do my inputs go. So we're going to go ahead and start with this bottom one that says, okay, I'm going to just type in 5 for 5% and a 30-year loan, and then I say here $200,000. So 200, and I'm going to bold those so that they stand out. Okay, and then in order to calculate a monthly payment, that way we can use GoalSeek to say, how do we get it down to $1,000? But in order to calculate a monthly payment, so I'm saying, look, if I took out a $200,000 mortgage, so a 30-year mortgage at 5%, Excel has a payment formula in it. And so I'm going to type in PMT. This calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. So that's like a fixed term and a fixed rate mortgage. And I'm going to click on that payment. And it's going to say I've got a rate, or if I click on up here, I'm going to say it's got a rate, the number of periods, and then the present value is how much you borrowed today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the rate is going to be, now actually one other thing on that is this annual rate, this is an annual rate, but we make payments monthly on mortgages or car loans or anything like that. So there's a workaround, which is I have to convert these things to months. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say is equal to payment, and I'm going to click on this FX so that we can see it, but the rate is going to be this 5% divided by 12. The number of periods is 30 times 12, because I'm making 12 monthly payments for 30 years, so it's going to be 360. And then the present value is the $200,000 in this in cell Bravo 23 in B23. Okay, and you'll notice because this is doing a net present value calculation, money that goes out is negative and money that comes in is positive. So I'm taking in $200,000 from the loan, and then I'm making these $1,000.73 1073, so $1,073. I'm making those payments out, back to the bank or the credit union or whatever. So again, if I click in here, you'll see I've got B12. Let's see if I make that bigger. Okay, so I've got B12 divided by 12, so the 5%, because that converts that annual rate to a monthly rate. B22 times 12, so 30 years times 12 months. Okay, and then I'm borrowing $200,000. Okay, now if I want to say, how could I change the interest rate to get this payment? Like, I still want to borrow $200,000, but if I got a lower interest rate, or how low would it need to go so that I could get this monthly payment down to $1,000 a month? Okay, that's why we're going to use GoalSeek. So I'm going to click on this monthly payment. I'm going to go Data, What If Analysis, GoalSeek. So I want to change B25, the monthly payment, to negative 1,000. That's the only tricky thing, is this is an outflow, so it's negative 1,000, and I want to do it by changing the interest rate. Okay, and this is going to say, okay, at 4.39%, I could get that down to $1,000 a month. Okay, without changing the term amount or the amount or the length of the loan. So this is 30 years. Okay, now if I use the same up here, I'm going to start with that 5%. Okay, and I'm going to use 30 years. And I'm going to start with $200,000. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bold this. Now I'm going to make that 5%. I'm going to add 2 decimal places so that we can get a different interest rate. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and put in, so here equal our payment. And again, I'm going to put that's the rate divided by 12. I'm going to put the 30 years times 12, so there's 360 payments. And this is $200,000 a year. Okay, so now what I'm going to say is, and hit enter. Okay, and now what I'm going to change is at 5%, if I'm willing to put in $1,500, okay, what is the how much can I borrow? What's the maximum amount I can borrow? Okay, so this time I'm going to hold the interest rate constant. What I want to change is this loan amount. So I'm going to go here in my monthly payment, Data, GoalSeek. So again, I'm going to say my monthly payment, I want to set that to negative 1,500 by changing the loan amount. Okay, and that says if I borrow $279,422 at 5%, that would put my monthly payment would be $1,500. Okay, so in one case I held the loan amount constant and changed the interest rate, and in this one I held the interest rate constant and let it change the loan amount. So now the exercise asks you to I have several questions there, so you're going to actually input different numbers or find different things, whatever it takes to answer the questions in the quiz. But I think you've seen now GoalSeek can be useful or used in a variety of ways to sort of find I mean, the reason they call it what if is what would it take, or what if I change the interest rate to this, or what if I change the loan amount to this. So hopefully that helps. Good luck on the quiz, and I'll talk with you soon.